Thank you all for joining today's show, the Woburn Spotlight, with our guest, Senator Cindy Friedman. I know we've had you on a few times now, Senator Friedman, but it's always a pleasure to see you.
Hi, Tyler. It's great to see you too. Hope everybody in your family is well and safe and getting through these times.
We are getting by. There's been a lot more dinners had with my wife, for better or worse. She's probably sick of me at this point, but a lot of time spent home. Everyone's happy and healthy, and I hope the same is true for you as well.
Yes, it is.
Well, I have had the pleasure of speaking to you a few times now and interviewing you probably over a half dozen times over the last 2, 3, 4 years. But as a way of getting started, mind just telling us a little bit about yourself for anybody that may be new to the show or has not met you personally?
Sure. I'm Cindy Friedman. I'm the state senator for the 4th Middlesex District, which includes Woburn, Arlington, most of Lexington, Burlington, and Billerica. And I've been doing this for 3 years. 3 years. And before that, I was the chief of staff to Senator Ken Donnelly. And before that, I had lots of other careers. So
you always keep busy. That's something I've known about you.
Right, yeah.
Well, I'm excited to hear about some of the updates. You know, what life has looked like, over the last 3, 6 months, maybe even last year in review, and really spend some time talking about where you see and government sees, the next 3 to 6 months taking you and your time. So, do you mind just kind of giving us a 30,000-foot flyover as to maybe where you started this year and what some of the major goals were, and have they changed and what do they look like now?
Sure. So where we started is a really good question because I can't remember. I mean, it's been so long.
Feels like years.
So much has happened. It just feels like years. And I know that that's true for so many of us. But I am the Senate chair of healthcare financing. So my focus in the Senate is on healthcare. And we started the session passing some really important healthcare bills in the Senate that had to do with pharmaceuticals and the cost of drugs, around telehealth and scope of practice and surprise billing. We did a great mental health parity bill, which included a lot of other issues around mental health and access to mental health. I'm also the vice chair of Senate Ways and Means, and so we've done a couple budgets since then. And then COVID hit. Yeah. And it really, like everyone else, we pivoted into a whole new realm. And my efforts were really focused on health and hospitals and practitioners and insurance companies, and making sure that people continued to have access, that providers could stay up and running, that hospitals had what they needed during this time. The legislature since March has been very, very active. I mean, and it's been a lot of it in response to COVID. So for instance, we passed a big vote by mail law that expanded vote by mail and allowed much more access to mail, to voting through mail. We did a municipal government bill, which let municipalities have more flexibility around when they do their budgets and addressing some of the health challenges that they had during the pandemic. We did a public health data bill, which required COVID-19 pandemic data to be recorded or reported transparently and continually. We did an unemployment bill that expanded unemployment to for a lot of people. We did the eviction and foreclosure moratorium to stop evictions during this time. We passed a law that gave flexibility on MCAS testing so that schools that were closed couldn't do MCAS testing, and so we relieved some of those requirements. We did tax filing deadline relief for people, for people and municipalities. So, and we extended those deadlines. We allowed cities and towns to postpone elections that were required in March and April. so that they, and give them flexibility on how, when to bring those up. And on the Senate side, we did breakfast after the bell, which is a fabulous program and a requirement that schools that have a certain number of children who are who fall below a certain income, where that means everybody in the school gets breakfast, regardless of what their income is. And one of the most jarring things that I've learned that have really hit home is that this notion of how many children get fed by schools. When we closed the schools, one of the first things that happened is we had a huge food insecurity issue. And it was really focused on children, because those children were getting breakfast and lunch in school, and they closed, and all of a sudden that wasn't available. We can have a big argument about whether schools should be feeding children, or if that should be a much greater responsibility of our state to ensure food security. But the reality is they are being fed by schools, and we needed to support schools in ensuring that those kids get food. This expands that and allows that when they are in school, that everybody will get fed. And then there was an IT bond bill that we passed, which was a big bill, that was investments in our infrastructure, our IT infrastructure, and we made some CORI reforms, which are CORI offender record information. Mm-hmm. We require that some of that to be automated so people are protected. So if they serve their time, their records are cleared, or their records are appropriately dealt with, so that these aren't following them. These offenses aren't following them around for the rest of their lives. And this is really important for kids who are 18, 19, who maybe got caught drinking a beer in a park, right? And now they have a CORI. Well,
fair enough. That makes sense.
You know. So those were some of the things that that we signed into law, all of those, House and Senate. And then we did in the Senate, we did another healthcare bill, which we require now telehealth to keep going, because it was such a huge success and such a necessity for people. So we've extended that to require that telehealth be covered. It also had the scope of practice. So the professionals that we allowed to work up to the height of their license, like nurse practitioners, without being supervised, we've now, this bill would allow them to continue to do that. We did a step therapy reform bill. Step therapy is when an insurance company requires you to go through certain medications before you can get to the one that maybe your doctor believes is the best for you. Very serious problem for a lot of people. And we've now addressed that issue, so it's really limited. And we want to put those decisions back in the hands of the doctors and the patients.
Makes a lot of sense. I could see how that is even relatable in my own life of, reflecting on steps you need to take before you can get to, frankly, what your doctor says is the right path to go down. So
right, or you change doctors and the insurance company requires you to start all over again, or there's just all ways in which this gets implemented, and it's really a disservice to patients. We did a DCF reporting bill, which required DCF to do more reporting on children in their custody that have mental health and need mental health care. And we did a sweeping economic recovery and development package that invests in infrastructure, small businesses, jobs, especially in the wake of the coronavirus. And that's actually in the House. They're now, those are two compromised bills that are being conferenced. So those are some of the things that we've done. And looking ahead, I want to make sure that we finalize the comprehensive healthcare bill that we did. I'm on the conference committee. So I and my co-leader in the House will get together and reconcile our differences. We will be staying vigilant on what's happening with COVID. I still meet with the hospitals once a week to see how they're doing. I'm now on a working group that was started by the command center for vaccines and how we will deal with vaccines if and when they come. And then we'll just continue to address all the issues that arise due to the pandemic, because they're not going away.
Certainly. I can only imagine a lot of what you're doing. Don't want to speak for you, but I can only imagine a lot of it is still reactive, right? I mean, you're doing what you can to be proactive, but this is just happening so darn fast, right? And like you said earlier, things are still weird. This is the word I believe you used. It feels weird, right?
Yeah,
it certainly does.
None of us have done this before, so it's really a learn as you go. But there's a lot of people who are committed to doing a really, really competent job for our state. So that's good.
That is great.
And unlike a lot of other places, we're all pretty much getting along. So we have a lot of bipartisan engagement, and it works well. You need that when you're in the middle of a crisis.
That's great to hear that you guys are able to come together and sit across the table, even if it's sit across the Zoom table right now from one another,
yeah.
And make it work. So kind of speaking of that, what is your day to day? What is your week to week? It's got to have changed dramatically. You used to be out in public a lot. Are you working from home? Are you guys getting together for meetings? Do you mind sharing a little bit about what that looks like for you?
Sure. We're pretty much working from home. My staff is all at home. Most of my day is spent on Zoom or on a conference call. I go in a certain amount. I go in to preside over a Senate, to a session, or when we were doing a couple of very big bills, I was asked to come in. But other than that, I'm at home, and everything is done. All the meetings that I've been doing has been virtual. And actually, what's really fascinating about it is I spend a lot more time in meetings than I did before, because it's so easy to get everybody together. Nobody says, I can't come to that meeting because I'm going to be in Woburn and you at 2:00 and you want me to come to a meeting at 2:15. I can't make it by 2:15, right? Everybody's immediately there. So
yeah, that's a really good point. There's a lot of time, I'm sure you were in the car for many meetings prior, phoning in or missing them altogether. And to your point, now we're just across the living room or a few rooms away from our computer, which is easy access to a meeting.
Yeah.
Any big bills? You mentioned big bills that you had to go into in the past to kind of preside over or anything like that. The next 3-6 months, where do you see your focus being yourself, and maybe also the local government level? Where do you see that the focus being spent in the next 3 to 6 months?
Well, I guess I would look at it at 3 months, because in January the new session begins. And
Fair enough. Yep.
So I think there's a couple really big bills before us. The biggest one is the budget. And beyond the commitment we've made, both the Senate and the House and the governor have made to keep municipal local aid and Chapter 70, which is education funding, to keep them whole going in 2021. We have not made any decisions except to do a temporary budget to keep the government running. And so that's the really big elephant in the room, if you will. And it's not because we can't agree, it's because we don't know what we have. So we just came out recently, September revenue came out, and it was below last year, but it was better than they thought it was going to be. We've gotten some federal money, but we don't know whether we're going to get more federal money. And whether or not we get federal funds really will drive what our budget looks like. So the House, so Ways and Means from both branches of the legislature are waiting as long as they can to see what that looks like, and if we will be getting more money. I think we're looking at in 2021 about a $5 billion deficit without any support from the feds. So so that's the really big bucket item.
Yeah, I'd say
that
so.
we get to, get through. And then we have a number of bills in committee we've got economic development, we have a climate bill, we have a healthcare bill, and we have a police reform bill. So all those right now are being conferenced, and hopefully we will have, a final conference bill for each one of those. And I know that's ongoing. And then I think there are some things that we will probably be looking at just to clean up the end of the year. And I'm not sure what those are yet, but I certainly have a couple bills that I would really like to see move before the end of the year. So.
Any in particular that you're able to share or comfortable sharing?
Sure. Well, I want the healthcare bill to
I figured. I didn't want to ask I know it's kind of a general question, but I figured the ones that you're tied to a bit more specifically.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of healthcare bills. There's a bill that protects police who have been who are disabled because of a violent act during their a violent act during active duty. So that I've been working on, and I'd like to see that get through. There's a couple other bills that are healthcare bills. There's a bill that is called that addresses the issue of PANS Panda, which is a condition that children get. It's a sort of result of strep throat, and it's very serious, and we want to make sure that insurers cover it. So there's bills like that I would like to,
Well, I'm sure I'll have to have you back on, or we'll have to have you back on, and there'll be plenty of updates in another 3 or 6 months. It feels like earlier, I think it was, you said you had to pull up a list of everything you've done, because it seems like 6 months ago seems years away, right? It seems like that was years away.
Yeah.
Any way that local constituents can either get engaged or ask questions? What are you seeing from the community? How are people getting involved if they are, and how do they get involved if they want to be, I should say?
So we've done a lot of work just around we've done a lot of work with constituent services around unemployment and eviction. We've had lots of people calling us in the district to get help with those issues, healthcare as well. And that is something we're always happy to help people in any way we can. We can't always help, but we try very hard to support and help people. And that's the best way to do that is, of course, to call my office, which is 617-722-1432, or email me at cindy.friedman@masenate.gov, and we will respond as quickly as we can. We aren't in the office, but we pick up messages probably every hour. So we do get back to people, and if you email us, we will see it right away. So anybody who needs help or support, please call us, and we'll do everything we can to help. In terms of getting involved, I mean, I think, we can't ignore the fact that there is a huge election coming up, and you should get involved to make sure that you vote and everybody around you votes, because voting is the most important thing we can do right now. And it's the way to let your voice be heard and to make a difference. And your vote really does count. And it's not only your civic responsibility, but we need everybody's voice. So I would say get involved. I know there's lots of different things going on, lots of different organizations. Look up Google your bent, whatever it is. And, I'm a Democrat, so I know the Woburn Democratic Town Committee is a great resource. And I know that there's something on the Republican side as well. So, but just get involved and be really kind, because we need a lot of kindness and a lot of support and goodwill to get through all this. And we need to remember that we are all in it together, and taking care of each other is taking care of ourselves. So.
Very well put. Well, I appreciate your time. I always get a lot of enjoyment selfishly out of our time together, the interview process. So
Thank you.
Thank you for being here with me again. And I'm sure, next spring we'll have a plethora of updates as well.
Well, I hope so. And I hope they're good ones.
Hopefully they're good ones. I'll hold you to that. Okay, Cindy?
All right. And I'll hold you to it.
Well, thank you again so much. And thank you for whoever and everybody who is watching today's show. This is the Woburn Spotlight coming to you via Zoom. A bit of a change of pace. So thank you, and we'll see you again next time.